Skin Season 4 requires some explaining. This is an analysis that's gonna exhaust me. Skin Season 4 is a very, very strange season. I think it's strange in all the right ways. You know what I mean? It has mesmerized me. Its strangeness. It's really peculiar. Psychologically, philosophically, stylistically, narratively. And I'm going to tell you the way that I make sense of the season. It'd be really good. I highly recommend that you at least watch my Skin Season 2 and Season 3 analysis videos before this one so that you understand how I'm reading characters like Effie, characters like Cook, so that you get a good grasp over the postmodern analysis that I'm doing here. And I think that Gen 2, seasons 3 and 4, these are extremely postmodern seasons. These are possibly the most postmodern things I've ever seen. So I'm just going to explain it. It might not make sense to any of you, but I think it's actually pretty beautiful. Here's where I think the true power of Skins Season 4 is. And just like in Season 3, it is mostly found in Effie and Cook and also Freddy. Alright. Try your best to follow along here. I'm gonna sound completely insane for the next few minutes. So the way I viewed Season 3 was in a very complex way, but to make it as simplistic as possible so we can move on to Season 4, I'll just say that Effie invented Season 3. She invented her own soap opera, her own love triangle, and was overwhelmed by her own narratives in the end, and didn't anticipate actually falling in love with one of the boys being Freddy. And yeah, so Season 3 was all Effie's doing. Season 3, Effie takes control. Season 4, Effie loses that control. Cook and Effie are equally important to Season 4's philosophy because Effie returns. She and Freddy have a great relationship, full of passion and stuff. And very early on, Cook loses it. He loses his control. He loses his fucking temper and he gets really violent at a party when he sees Effie and Freddy together and the way they're looking at each other. It's the first time he's seeing the consequences of the narrative. And he hates it, and he beats the shit out of the nearest possible person. JJ even catches a few stray punches. We get a wonderful central episode with Cook, where we learn a lot about his mother, a lot about why he is the way that he is. We get some great scenes with him and his kid brother. It's almost like he's taking his inner child out for a fucking anarchic joyride, and it ultimately breaks his heart. When I think he sees himself in the little kid. The inevitability of it all. The chaotic inevitability of it all. And ultimately, Cook becomes a fugitive in that moment. From that point on, he is on the run from the law. The law is consequence, right? Cook's big thing this season is that he is kind of changing because he knows there are consequences to his actions, meaning he knows there are narratives to his actions. He knows that the narratives are unending, and he's stuck here. He's trying to be less impulsive. He has a great scene with Naomi where they kiss for like a second, and he goes, the thing is, when you swim, people get splashed. That kind of thing. And I thought that was awesome. I thought that was great. I thought it was really interesting to see Cook using some self-control because he's aware of the consequences of his actions within the soap opera narrative that he is stuck in. This season's interesting because we're kind of changing the metaphors and we're making them a lot more postmodern in the sense that I think the narrative is bearing down on these kids. I think that everyone knows that like their narratives are coming to a close. Whether they're ready for them to end or not, they're going to end, and this cast is going to leave the show. The narrative needs people to behave. at the end of their arcs. The narrative needs people to behave accordingly. The narrative is trying to clean up Effie's intricately designed soap opera from the third season and try to clean it up, sanitize it, trying to make the audience forget certain things. There are subtle retcons throughout season 4, very subtle ones, which plays into Effie's treatment later, which I'll get to later in therapy, where they're trying to make the audience forget certain things. And it comes off as sloppy writing until you realize that the whole thing is about trying to make not only the audience forget, but the characters forget integral, essential parts of the narratives that they've been through. So I think that Cook is on the run from the narrative because he's served his purpose to this merciless narrative. Remember, I think that in a postmodern show like this one, the Effie was a postmodern brat because she invented narratives. She rejected the main narrative. She twisted the existing narratives. And I think that the narrative in season 4 is striking back, is coming for her and her friends. And Cook, he did his job. He says several times when he's on the run, like weird things every once in a while. Like he's talking to Freddy, like, is that all? Just because, I'm done here. I'm done here. Things like that. I'm done. He says a lot of things like, I've finished. I'm done. I've finished like what I'm supposed to do. I think he's a fugitive from the narrative. The narrative is after him to put him away, to get him out, because he's unpredictable. Like I said in season 3, he's this ball of mania, and you don't know when he's going to supernova. You have no clue. You just know that Effie knows how to wield him. Effie charges him. Effie uses him perfectly within her narrative systems. And I don't think that the main narrative of Skins really appreciates Cook, Effie, and Freddy this season, because they seem to refuse to behave properly. The narrative is kind to Effie and Freddy when Effie and Freddy are happy. When Effie starts to lose control, what she's really saying is she's losing her autonomy, her agency, the control she once had over the narrative itself. In fact, the narrative itself is bearing down on her, and her lack of control over it has driven her to psychotic depression. And there are really cool parts with Freddy when he's trying to figure out what's wrong with Effie. And he's printed out the symptoms of psychotic depression. And he makes an origami figure out of it. A couple ways to view that. He thinks that Effie is beautiful, even through her mental illness. Or my postmodern way of viewing it is that Freddy is determined to make art out of her sad rebellion, her sad depression. You can make art out of it, and that's not something that the narrative necessarily wants. Freddy doesn't want to bring her to the hospital. And that's what I mean. We have to look at institutions like the law and hospitals, mental facilities as the narrative itself. Ultimately, she is admitted there because she tries to kill herself. She's lost control. She doesn't feel as superhuman as she did before. I mean, and she was in seasons 2 and 3. She dominated the narrative, and now the narrative is mad because the narrative has to wrap shit up in only 8 episodes. It really doesn't need Effie to start to kind of realize that. It doesn't need Effie to lose control right near the end. It needs Effie to forget her hangups, her insecurities, the ones that are impossible for her to overcome. The narrative itself, the show itself, needs her to forget those things, and that's when Dr. John Foster enters the frame. He gets Effie to forget things that like Tony's accident. He gets her to forget Cook entirely, because remember, the narrative doesn't want Cook in the picture anymore. At this point, the narrative is viewing Cook as a mistake, as something dangerous, because he is dangerous to the narrative. I really hope you're following along, because I think this is really, really cool. And this is my view of it. This is why I think season 4 is actually really fascinating and strange. I understand if it's not making sense, but But please, please, it only gets better, in my opinion. The doctor gets her to forget a lot of things, and it's because of Cook, because of this unpredictable, chaotic ball of energy that she remembers things. And I think it is interesting that she's hung up on Tony's accident, on Tony getting hit by that bus. That's the first thing she brings up. Like, what are you thinking about? What are you thinking about? She's thinking about the time where Tony completely changed, where Tony was forced by the narrative to change, right? Tony was essentially lobotomized after that fucking bus. Or Effie could be viewing that bus hitting him as a very cruel attack on Tony's arc that he was going through at the time, because he was confessing his love on the phone to Michelle when he was hit by the bus. She's thinking about that bus though, first and foremost, and that's the first thing that that Foster makes her forget, and the very first thing she remembers with Cook as well, because they end up there. They end up at that tipping point of the entire Skins television show. They end up at the site of the accident itself. And just like Tony was hit by that bus and changed, you know, Effie was hit by a tidal wave of memory, was tackled by Cook and remembered everything, slapped by Cook, remembered everything. And the narrative really didn't like that. And it's then that she decides she doesn't want to see Foster anymore, because she realizes that she's actually losing her humanity, her character, her soul when she's with Foster. He's making her forget her character growth, the narratives that she invented, the beautiful narratives that she invented, the good and the bad. Cook says these wonderful things like, if I had to go back and do it all over again, every fuck up, every screw up, I do the exact same thing. Right? That we're better off with broken souls than with no soul at all. Freddy gets in Foster's face a little bit and says she doesn't want to see you anymore. We need a new doctor. She doesn't want you anymore. Foster invites Freddy to his house, requests his presence in his basement. And it is there where, wow, where Foster beats Freddy to death with a baseball bat. That was insane. That was crazy to see. But try viewing it through like through the metaphors that I've illustrated, through the postmodern lens that I'm trying to like show you. The narrative beat Freddy to death because Freddy has Effie's heart, because Freddy loves Effie for all of the fucked up parts that make up Effie Stoneham. The fucked up parts that the narrative needs to be cleansed in order for this story to end properly. The narrative kills Freddy because the narrative no longer needs Freddy, no longer wants Freddy. He's public enemy number one right there. The narrative kills Freddy, and it's brutal, and it's cruel, it's exploitative, but it's also sloppy, it's also rushed, and I think it's deliberately designed to be so. That's the thing. I know that people don't like this season very much because they take issue with, they call it some of the worst writing ever, but we have to admit that the first 3 seasons are pretty great. These guys know how to write. And the mistakes in Skins season 4, they aren't easily explained away. So we have to engage with them, I think, deeper. Like the way that I'm doing it, I think that we actually have to really dive headfirst into them, because they aren't, the mistakes don't make sense. When considering Skins 1 through 4 as a whole, they don't make sense. They're not easily explained away. Therefore, they must be deliberate. Like the framing even of Freddy's death is not very traumatic, to be honest. Like it's Jonathan Demme, it's Silence of the Lambs, it's B movie shit. Right? Like this show knows how to kill a character and make your heart break in a million tiny fucking pieces, Chris. Okay? They know how to kill a character and make it mean something something so radical and something so tender. They know how to do it. They deliberately didn't do it here. And they even put like a door in between, we don't see the murder occur. We see blood on the wall and stuff, but it's obscured. So I think that this is another instance of the show being esoteric. You have to view it in a different kind of lens, in a different kind of way, because the death itself is obscured. We can't see it happen, meaning that the meaning itself is also obscure, right? And that's the narrative separating us from the true meaning of the show, or from how fucking awful narratives can be to the characters within them, within their frameworks. And that is a framework within a framework. It's in the basement of his house. Like, I think I'm totally right in reading it this way, so fuck you. Then we get to my favorite payoff ever. Ever. The finale. Sure, Effie does some cool things, interesting things. She's back to being Effie Stoneham, and she feels altogether healthier and more loved and more loving. Cool. Let's talk about Cook in the finale. He's still on the run. He's still a fugitive. He's still being fucking crazy. Freddy's sister enlists him. Is like, you need to find my brother. My brother found you last year when you were on that stupid boat with your father. My brother saved you last year. If Freddy didn't show up, Cook's dad might have burned his fucking face off with a flare. Right? Like, Freddy did save Cook's life. I really loved Freddy's sister in this. It was here where I wished that maybe she were one of the main kids. I liked her a lot. Really, really captivating actor, and liked the dynamic that she had with Cook, especially in the finale. She gets him to agree to find her brother, gives her a notebook full of these pages of "I love her, I love her, I love her," and he's like, "So do I." And eventually one page says like, John Foster fucking is trying to hurt her. It's so contrived, but that's fine. That is so okay. The show even goes so far as to have like Freddy's ghost, or I'll be kind, like maybe Cook just hallucinates hearing Freddy's ghost say, "Cook!" But I am so here for that. I'm so here for that. That's Cook being charged. That's Cook, the weapon, being charged. Cook has been, he had his central episode, and he's been relatively calm since then. And he's been like a calming influence on the rest of the cast. It's been really bizarre, but also really sweet to see. But now it's time for Cook to do what Cook does. It's time for that ball of mania to unleash on someone. Ultimately, all of our principal leads gather in the shed and talk. And, I think suspiciously, even Freddy's sister at that point, no one's really talking about Freddy being gone. They're concerned with wrapping up their own little private meta narratives. They're all concerned with their interpersonal relationships, and they're all like wrapped up with a really suspiciously nice bow. And it feels really insincere. And I'm saying it feels that way on purpose, because Cook steps outside. He leaves that shed, the shed that I believe is controlled by this evil narrative. And who's watching the shed? The narrative itself, personified in John Foster. The narrative is watching the narrative conclude and hoping that all the kids behave for the final few minutes. In fact, the narrative tried to get rid of Cook in the beginning of the finale because he was staying at Naomi and Emily's, and cops burst through the door and he escapes the cops barely. The narrative did not want him here anymore. The narrative knows that Cook is a threat. And the narrative, like, it pacified the sister, but it did not pacify Cook. Cook goes outside and he's very sentimental over Freddy. He loved Freddy. He did. He loved Freddy. And he sees John Foster just like turn and walk away. He doesn't know who he is yet, but he follows him because he's compelled to. That ball of manic energy. I'm just reminded of how Effie used him so well, so lovingly, so chaotically within the narratives that she created in season 3. She used him as a weapon for her narratives. He was unstoppable. He breaks into Foster's home and finds a lot of bloody clothing, bloody shoes. And he finds John Foster, and he knows that he killed his best friend. Foster pulls out a baseball bat. And I actually wasn't scared at all, because I know it would take like an army to kill James Cook. I wasn't scared at all. I was excited because I knew what was about to happen, right? Cook has this fun little monologue of like, because I think that Foster says something like, I know you, you're nothing. Tell me all about you, Cook. Like, he knows everybody already. He omnipresent, right? It's not simply like Effie told me everything about you. This guy is the narrative itself. This guy is the narrative pacifying all of the misbehaved children so that they can complete their arcs and leave the show in a behaved and calm fashion. Cook, Cook would never do that. Never ever. Oh my god. I don't think you know what I am, mate. I just figured it out. I'm a weapon. I'm a postmodern brat. I'm Cook. Yeah, I'm nothing. Yeah. I'm a stupid kid. I'm a stupid fucking kid. I'm an idiot. But you don't really know who I am, though. I mean, dude, it's so exciting. He screams, I'm Cook! And charges at him in a blur of fucking frenzy, in a blur of mania. And cut to black, end of season 4. Bro. The postmodernists won. That's not how you wrap up a show nicely. A literal cliffhanger, dude. Like, okay, it's not how you end that. It ends on a cliffhanger? No, like they're not coming back right now. We're not. What? That's not ending in a cohesive fashion. That is nothing like the way that Gen 1 ended. All neatly with a very decent amount of closure. In fact, the only cliffhanger there would be one of hope. This is one of insane gloom, insane violence. Cook is the ultimate weapon of Skins Gen 2. He's the ultimate weapon of Effie's narrative. He's the ultimate postmodern weapon. He's more than a wrecking ball. Like I said, he's a ball of fucking mania. He is a supernova. And in that instance, that's when he supernovaed. That's when he fucking did it, man. He's an exploding star. And throughout all of season 3, it was almost like a dying star. But no, he had to explode. And he exploded on the narrative itself. And it makes so much sense here, because, like, it's Cook who is devoted to that. It is Cook who solves a murder. It's only Cook who knows that Freddy was murdered. The show then isn't interested in showing us grief or trauma or any of the other characters even talking about Freddy, really. It's Cook who keeps remembering. It's Cook who ultimately rips the narrative's heart out, head off. Cook, the ultimate weapon. Just waiting for him to go off the whole season, and he went off in a huge way. Thought that was amazing. That's extremely complicated. And fuck, man, that's extremely strange and fascinating. Yeah, I think that season 4 is all experimental. I think it's dealing with playing with the frameworks of television itself, with the concepts of narratives, with characters becoming larger than the narratives, or that are sick of being abused by the narratives, and also narratives that are just fucking exhausted from their characters trying to reject the narratives all the time, from the characters just being too stubborn to complete their character arcs, too unwilling to, too free. Right? So, I mean, in a postmodern sense, power is everywhere because it comes from everywhere. Power is a narrative. And if you create a great postmodern character, eventually that character will seek to cut the head off of the narrative itself, because the character will want actual freedom, actual justice, actual vengeance. And the narrative will become almost like a dictator. So, authoritarian. And Cook, It's a rebel without a cause. What are you rebelling against? Well, what have you got? He's quoting Marlon Brando with a cheeky ass grin, man. Cook has no time for authority, hates authority. And here, it felt so good seeing one of these teen drama characters just go fucking mental. Just blitz, charge at the narrative itself. And that's what I do think that the therapist John Foster was representative of, the narrative itself. And those therapy sessions with Effie, he was making her forget things that were too difficult for her character to overcome because they only had like 2 episodes left. It's like, you need to get better, you need to get better. And he was obsessed with Effie. Skins as a show is obsessed with Effie. That is fairly obvious. I don't think that's a problem. I'm not criticizing the show for that. I'm obsessed with Effie. I think she's awesome too, but the show is intensely obsessed with her. Just like John Foster is, right? Just like him. John Foster is the show. John Foster is the narrative, and Cook, he's Cook. He's Cook. And you fucking killed the wrong kid. That's amazing. Now, a lot of great postmodern art can be pretty self-defeating, at least when it comes to analysis, because me explaining all of that, I think it's fairly clear that it would be pointless of me to analyze, Naomi, Emily, Katie, Thomas, Pandora, like JJ. Be rather pointless because I think that they were all deliberately given easy things to overcome, to accomplish, so they could reach an arc. Uh, they were helped out by the narrative so much, and they were kind of playing along and behaving really well. I mean, compare JJ's central episode in 4 to his really depressing and almost overwhelmingly shocking episode in season 3. It was a lot more confrontational, at least. In season 4, it's a bad rom-com, but like I said, I think that's deliberately so. And the characters who aren't playing along are Effie, Cook, and Freddy. Oh, and they had to be sorted out by the narrative itself, by the psychologist, by the therapist, by the show. They made Effie forget when she was starting to get too out of hand. The show would never kill her. It's obsessed with her. But it would kill Freddy because Freddy's in love with all those fucked up different parts of Effie. It tried as hard as it could to get rid of Cook. Put the law after him, put like drug dealers at, like, everyone has been after Cook at one point or another. It tried to get rid of Cook so bad, but it couldn't. Cook is anarchy. You can't put it back in the bottle once you've poured the first drink. It's everywhere. He's everywhere, dude. And he found out. It's fun because for seasons 1, 2, and 3, I feel like Effie knew she was a character in a television show. At least, when it was necessary for the show to have that sort of postmodern flair, and I adored it. But Cook didn't know that in season 3. He was just this like clueless, chaotic weapon. But he finds out in the very end of season 4. And the first thing he does when he finds out is he also finds out his purpose. He's unstoppable. He's told in his central episode, you can't be like blaming everyone else for your problems. Yeah, he can, though. He can blame the narrative. He is a character. He can blame the narrative for giving him such a shitty life with shitty impulses, with shitty insecurities. He can blame the narrative for making him fall in love with a girl who compulsively breaks his heart. He can blame the narrative for killing his best friend with a baseball bat. And he can kill that narrative too. In fact, he did. The second he charges at John Foster, who I believe represents the narrative, show cuts to black because the narrative's dead. It's over. It's finished. That's not a clean ending. But that's where it had to end because that's when Cook killed it. Bro. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Oh my God, that's fascinating. Whoo, whoo, boy. Oh boy, oh boy. But I think my reading of it is supported by so many things. When Effie is hallucinating that people are after her, like the language that she uses, like they've been after me like all my life, and now they can finally get in. It's the narrative. She'd been able to manipulate narratives around her where she could always dominate them, but then she lost control, and they're moving in, and she can feel herself slipping away. And she knows it. She's lost control. She's no longer in control. She's lost it. Effie tries to leave prematurely because the narrative knows that if she stays, something bad will happen, and the narrative can't afford for that to happen. Effie says, "None of this matters. You're all great people, but I think I'm finished. I've had enough." That doesn't sound like a real person saying that, right? That's an archetype. That's a character. That is Effie Stoneham, the written character, saying that without any agency, without any memory. And thank God Cook slapped postmodern freedom back into her. Two postmodern brats baptizing each other in the pouring rain. Cook asks Freddy, "Are we just three losers screwing each other forever, or are we something more than that?" They are something a lot more than that. And the narrative's terrified of what they could become. That's why the narrative had to kill one of them. Oh my God. Katie's dad says to her, people do stupid things when they're trying to pretend like they aren't trapped. That's how Katie is able to rationalize people like Effie, people like Cook doing outrageous things because they feel like they're trapped by something non-existent. But they actually hyper literally are trapped by the narrative that they're in, that they no longer have any sort of dominance over, and they're not playing along with. And the narrative is punishing them for it. People don't just do stupid things when. And what's a stupid thing? The stupid thing is that's defined by the trap itself, not by the stupid thing, not by the person. When a person does a thing, whether or not it's stupid or it's smart, is determined by the framework of where that action has taken place. And of course, a narrative will think that a thing is stupid if it goes against itself, if it goes against the narrative itself, if it goes against character development or an arc, right? And so they will feel like they're trapped. It's all about prisons, right? Because they're trying to take Cook and put him into a prison. What is a prison? Prison is not growth. Prison is character stasis. But I love in that moment, the final moments of season 4, it's like Cook realizes his usefulness as a character. As a character that's ultimately larger than life itself. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I have probably lost all of you. All of you are right now going, this your cult boyfriend's officially lost his mind. But dude, this is amazing. I really urge all of you to rewatch Skin season 4 with the language that I've been using in this video. And it's it's an incomplete analysis, because I think it's an incomplete analysis of right here, because I think that it is so vast and complex. I just can't devote all of my time to it. I think you could spend so much time analyzing season 4. And it's wild because it's certainly like my least favorite season so far, but it might be the most interesting from an artistic and philosophical point of view. From a compositional one, for sure. People complain that season 4 had bad writing. No, no, no. You're a bad viewer. You don't get it. You don't get that that's the point. Oh my God. Gen 2. Gen 1, beautifully designed kids. Seasons 1 and 2 are beautifully designed shows. Beautifully designed episodes. Virtually perfect, right? They're basically essentially perfect. Gen 2, seasons 3 and 4, a great deal of flaws. And I love them for their flaws. I love these seasons for their flaws, because the show is exploring postmodernism in the deepest way that I've ever witnessed. and I have been covering postmodern art for a long time. This is really intense. What I'm saying is, I can already say Skins is a top 5 teen drama. Even if even if the rest of the seasons suck, this is top 5. In seasons 1 and 2, they created the legend. In seasons 3 and 4, they created the myth. They are all masterpieces in their own way. And some of them are masterpieces in the most disagreeable ways ever. Like it's a complex reaction that I'm having to season 4. Especially to season 3. Gen 2 is really something that needs to be studied. That I am studying, right? But like needs to be studied even more. This is just an intro. There's so much like this. It's a fabulous work of art. I mean, I'm ending the video now because I definitely feel like I've said more than enough to at least intrigue you to take your own stab at exploring this season. Like, please add to my analysis. Add to the language that I've been using. Find other parts where this makes sense, because it does. It fucking does. And I think there's parts in every episode, but I didn't think of using this language until a bit later on, right? If you go into it with it, like, oh god, I need to rewatch the season. I need to rewatch it already. God, fucking brilliant. That's art. That's why I do this shit. I really hope that you're feeling me on this one. I've been your cult boyfriend, absolutely losing my mind over Skins season 4. So long, Gen 2. So long, guys. You've blown my fucking mind. Thank you.